Good afternoon. This is Rich Nass, and I am here for this week's installment of 5 Minutes With. This week I have the pleasure of interviewing Michael Furtado, who is the founder and president of PCCardsDirect.com. Okay, Michael, the name of your company is a URL, so explain to me what that means. What is it that your company does?
Well, PC Cards Direct is an SSD storage leader. We specialize in helping the industry focus on legacy and continue supporting legacy equipment even as far down as the old PCMCIA form factor and capacities as small as 16 megabytes.
Is there still a need for those really old PCMCIA cards? Boy, that goes back probably to the early 90s, I'll say.
It really does. You know, it started off with SanDisk and continued on with great companies like Silicon Systems that continue to manufacture them. And, you know, you don't think about it, but modern aircraft still uses PCMCIA. We have a number of military contracts and commercial airlines that still use PCMCIA form factor to on- and offload data from vehicles and aircraft.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to be calling those modern aircraft, but I get where you go. Okay, so storage has changed radically in the last 20 years, probably more so than lots of other technologies. And one of those big changes is that the prices continue to go down, the storage capacities continue to go up at, in some cases, amazing rates. So obviously this trend has to stop at some point. But do you see an end to this, or are we just going to continue on these two divergent paths?
Well, you know, I think as long as technology improves and our ability to manipulate the wafer is ongoing, I think we'll continue to have larger capacities at lower prices in the consumer arena. Now, saying that, we like to differentiate between consumer and what we call industrial. So the consumer would be anyone using NAND flash in the 0 to 70 degrees Celsius range. That is the typical flash you buy your SSDs from. Your typical reseller would provide you with a 0 to 70 degree rating. And that is usually MLC rated, and that's where you're going to see the 960 gigabyte SSD for, you know, under $500. But, you know, there is the other industrial grade that we like to specialize in, and that is the minus 40 degrees Celsius range to a plus 85 degrees Celsius range. And that is also available in what we call the SLC form factor that's going to have much, much faster write times. And that's what you're seeing in these SLC, MLC flash configuration servers that a lot of enterprises are deploying right now to decrease the latency in some of their large database deployments.
So what is the physical difference between something that's consumer and what you just described for really harsh environments? I mean, is there really a difference in the actual product?
Well, you know, using it in your PC at home, you're not going to see the difference. You're doing a quick read write, and you're not going to have, you know, the large Oracle databases that enterprise is going to be using, reading and writing from multiple locations that perhaps are even in a cluster type server environment. So the consumer with 1, 2 PCs, maybe even a server, probably isn't going to see the difference. But when you start putting it into large enterprise facilities and you start clustering these infrastructures together, and you do see latencies, and that's why some of the new modern storage infrastructure, really what we're seeing is we're seeing a 50% SLC where you're going to write to those drives because it's got a faster write time, and then it's going to migrate that data over to the MLC side of it because those drives are much less expensive, but they both have the same read times. So you can really maximize your budget by deploying 50% SLC, 50% MLC in your storage environment.
Okay. So what are some of the up-and-coming technologies that people should be aware of with respect to storage? I mean, is there a reason to wait, you know, to buy your storage, or do you dive in now?
Well, it all depends on your need. What we're seeing in the market today is, as we know, environmental factors, huge cost of power are forcing data centers to increase the temperature within the data center. So those, you know, sub 70 degree data centers we used to wear sweatshirts to walk into aren't really that cold anymore. And so you're forcing the equipment to work at a much higher operating temperature. Now, typically that's not going to really exceed anything too drastic, but as you know, with the increased heat, we are looking at a reduced life cycle of that hardware. So what we're seeing is a lot of the new motherboards are using the M.2 SATA to boot the OS, and it's usually just a local onboard on the motherboard, and then, of course, will offload to any additional SSD or traditional type storage that you already have on the server. But what we're seeing is people using the M.2 SATA industrial grade, again, the minus 40 to plus 85 degrees Celsius, as bootable in those servers because of the environmental changes.
That's pretty interesting. I would love to continue this discussion, but we have used up our 5 minutes. That was very enlightening, and like I said, I would love to follow up on this. That was Michael Furtado, the founder and president of PCCardsDirect.com. So, appreciate your time, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.